Hey guys, how's it going? It's week 14. I'm Al. We're going to take a first look at a lineup on DraftKings to use for this week. And it's not really a lineup to use. I wouldn't say cut and paste this lineup. This ain't a Command V stream. But it's a first look at lineups. It's Monday morning. It's 10:45 a.m. here on the West Coast. I'm in Los Angeles. So for me, this is not a lineup that we've put a lot of research or time into. We spent a little time before I started this recording on my stream here on Twitch. If you want to join us, right there in the description down below is the link. I'd love to see you. I'd love to meet you. The stream is always locked during NFL. The chat is always locked during NFL streams where I record these to subscribers only. So if you want to take part in the chat, you got to subscribe. You can do it for free if you've got Twitch Prime, yada, yada, yada. Y'all know the drill. But we went through a little bit. We kind of looked at things. And I did want to talk about one thing. I always look for like the three-legged wildebeest. I always look for the weakest one in the herd. I'm always looking for, you know, weak defenses to exploit, and there definitely are some, and we do it every week. I definitely look for volume. How can we get guys that have a lot of touches? But if you went through this season, and we just said every single Monday, if the first look video was as easy as, guys, just play Gurley and KELCE and MAHOMES, and let's find some value to fit around them, we'd probably been extremely profitable this football season with keeping it as simple as that. So this first look, I'm going to take a little bit of a different angle. I'm going to try and build that lineup. Obviously, Gurley not on the slate. They're playing a night game. They've been flexed out. We're going to plug in a couple of high-volume running backs. We're going to just, even though my process is typically just to go with a cheap quarterback that gets a lot of touchdown upside against a bad defense and then find a cheaper tight end, I'm going to do it a little bit differently this week. So we're going to plug in MAHOMES. And we're going to plug in KELCE. And yes, I know they have a tough matchup against Baltimore, and I don't care. Because MAHOMES, against his tough defenses that he's played this year, Arizona, I mean, are they a tough defense? He had 20 fantasy points. He's really had a kind of a soft schedule. Cincinnati, terrible. Denver, a good defense, but not as good as they've been in years past. New England, 30 fantasy points. Jacksonville, toughest defense he's played, probably, 20.82. Denver twice, 25 points against them the first time. San Francisco, no, not tough. Pittsburgh, no, not tough. Chargers, no. Chargers are a pretty tough defense, but they had no Joey Bosa that first game. So, like, averaging 31 fantasy points a week with a floor of 20, I'm just going to plug in Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Again, for all the weeks that all these valued tight ends have had no fantasy points, sometimes getting you a bagel or 1.5 points, 42, 31. His low weeks are like 10, 28, 19, 14, 11, 18, 20, 22, 32. I'm just going to plug Kelce. Forget it. Right? Now let's look at running backs. We want at least two guys at running back that are going to get a lot of volume. We're going to plug in a third guy so we can hopefully get to our 70 touches if possible. But if not, bear with me on this one. We might not be able to get there because we're spending almost $14,000 on a quarterback and a tight end where we usually spend about $9K max, right? So getting to that 70 touches might be a problem this week. However, Carolina going against Cleveland, why are we not playing Christian McCaffrey considering that Gurley's not on the slate? This is the let's not overthink the damn thing edition of the first look lineup. You know, 30 points in 4 of his last 5 games, getting consistent volume in the passing game, getting consistent volume on the ground. 19 touches last week, 28 touches the week before, 19. If I can get 18 plus touches out of Christian McCaffrey, considering that half of those theoretically should come through the air, I just want to plug and play Christian McCaffrey and the Cleveland Browns, a solid enough matchup for us to go with McCaffrey. We'll plug him in at running back. Saquon Barkley, also somebody that we can consider. Very high volume, a lot of usage in the passing game. It is a tough matchup against Washington. That's one thing that does give me pause, right? But you look at his game logs, every single game this year, save one, 20 fantasy points or more. I think he's fine. Alvin KAMARA against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a team that we have attacked essentially all season long, but priced up to 8,100 based on the matchup. The first time that he played him, we can't really go with, considering that A, it was 3 months ago, and B, there was no Mark Ingram in this game, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers still a team that we want to attack, right? He's had 3 games where he hasn't really paid off for you. I want to play Alvin KAMARA this week, but I also want to use Ezekiel Elliott, who's leading the league in touches, playing at home against a Philly defense that has allowed a ton of points to opposing running backs over the last 4 weeks. Well over 100 yards rushing allowed over the last 4 weeks. Tons of fantasy point potential. His involvement in the passing game way up from where it was in years past. I think in week 10 or 11, he surpassed his career high in terms of targets and catches. And continues to build on that with 18 catches over the last 3 games. Yes, it is a league opponent. Yes, it is a divisional opponent. Last time he faced him, 39.7 points on the road. Take those 2 touchdowns out. You still have 27 fantasy points at 8.6K. I'm going to plug in Zeke. Looking for another value running back. We can kind of come down the sheet here and see what else is left. PHILLIP Lindsay, somebody that I've been really high on recently, and apparently I didn't have enough of him this week. I didn't even outpace the field. He had 32 fantasy points last game on ridiculous efficiency, albeit on the road now. I don't expect 20 touches out of him. I never do. Mid-teens touches is always in play, and you look here. Yeah, he had a 65-yard touchdown last game. 32-yard run here. 41-yard run here, 22-yard run here, 28-yard run here. The fact that he busts a long run, a 20-plus yard run, pretty much over half the time in terms of games played, is beyond absurd. I don't know any other way to put that other than it's just beyond absurd. Yes, there are 3 running backs back for New England. One of these was on like a fake Hail Mary at the end of the half, where they threw him the ball. Everybody went deep, and they threw it to James White, and there was nobody between him. He had 40 yards of free run there and didn't get into the end zone, but it's like a free 40-yard catch. 9 targets, still intriguing to me. 8 targets, 7 targets. Good floor, but the prices have come up to kind of match it. Nick Chubb against Carolina. Carolina, a tough run defense. Aaron Jones going up against Atlanta, who we have attacked all the time. We have to kind of take into consideration that the coaching change here. Not that I'm scared of playing Aaron Jones in this spot. I'm not. At 7,200, though, I'm not sure that I can fit him with KELCE and MAHOMES in the lineup. If you're going cheaper here, then yes, I think Aaron Jones is going to be exceptionally high owned this week. James Conner, the cover boy for this, because I had the cover made yesterday. Oakland is a team we want to stream everything against. All right, you want to play wide receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends, and running backs against, as they allow like 7 yards per play. If James Conner, who sustained an injury last night in the Sunday Night Football game, is able to play this week, I'm going to have loads of James Conner in Week 14. Coming down a little bit in salary. Not all the way there yet. Theoretic, not somebody I really always like to play. Adrian Peterson, questionable this week. This is the interesting play for me, is Justin Jackson. With MG3 still likely to miss, Justin Jackson only had 8 rushes this week. I expect that to climb a little bit, probably in week 14. I think there will also be value plays that will pop up throughout the week that are at the 4K and below range. But right now, I'm fine plugging Justin Jackson for the sake of this first look, assuming that, in my opinion, Austin Ekeler is just not the type of guy that can be a lead back. So if you run Justin Jackson in that role, if you're the Chargers, and maybe I'm going down narrative street here, and I'm going on a little bit more of an anecdotal trail. He's been really good on a per carry basis. He's a bit of a stronger running back than Ekeler. Ekeler's a kind of a little guy, albeit with massive legs. Keeping Ekeler in his role as the change of pace back and bumping Justin Jackson up and giving him more carries theoretically would make sense this week if MG3 is still out. And for 3,800, I'm fine with him. And there's a possibility that other value plays will open up at running back if you don't like him and we need more value for this kind of a first look lineup. But for this exercise, I'm fine with this. We're going to need a cheap defense. Packers against Atlanta. Atlanta really hasn't scored a ton of points recently, but I don't know if they're the turnover machine that we really want. The Dolphins against New England, no thank you. 49ers against Denver. There is turnover upside anytime Case Keenum is under center. Cleveland against Carolina, probably not. Cardinals against Detroit, though, with as many sacks as Detroit gives up and as high a blitz percentage as Arizona does have, and if you look at their sacks per game, 4 sacks, 4 sacks, 5 sacks, 1 sack. The only bad game right here against Green Bay. Yes, they don't have a ton of points per game. right? If you look at, well, they only get 2, 2, 4, 2. They're 2,300. It's a low risk, low cost, high upside if they can turn one of those sacks into a strip sack and scoop it up and get a fat man touchdown. For 2,300, I'm okay with them. Now we need to find some value wide receivers. Now, where are we going to find them is question one. Because, like, at the top of the list, there's going to be a lot of wide receivers who want to play. Antonio Brown going up against Oakland, great play. Thomas against Tampa Bay Buccaneers, great play. I don't know that defenses matter when it's the wide receiver one for Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback. That wide receiver one has had 12-plus touchdowns pretty much every single season for the last 5 or 6 seasons, and Davante Adams doing that exact thing. Once again, he is a very good talent. He's not like the best wide receiver in the league, but he's a very good talent with one of the best quarterbacks throwing to him who zeroes in once they get in the red zone on his wide receiver one pretty much every single year. So touchdown upside with him, regardless of matchup, in my opinion. Odell Beckham Jr., I mean, maybe he'll throw a touchdown this week, right? Somebody in my chat put out a really good stat that said Odell Beckham Jr. has 2 touchdown passes that are over 40 yards this year, and Eli does not have 1. I added to that saying that the difference there as well is that Odell Beckham Jr. does not have an Odell Beckham Jr. to throw to as a deep threat, and Eli Manning has Odell Beckham Jr., so that makes it even worse. He's in play, but behind other guys for me. Julio Jones against Green Bay, also in play again this week. Julio had an off week in week 13 against Baltimore, predictably so. Going back on the Julio train in week 14 is something I'm probably going to want to do. DeAndre Hopkins, matchup independent. Keenan Allen seeing a ton of targets. If you want to pay up for wide receiver this week, I'm fine paying for 1 or 2. Based on the lineup build that I just want to go with, based on, you know, we should all have just been playing Mahomes and KELCE and Gurley every single week and then figuring the rest out. That's just kind of how I'm looking at things for this first look. So we're going to have to dial down. Priced up here at 4,900 something. Godwin and Humphreys, I noticed, were priced up both to 4,900 against New Orleans, who has been not good against opposing wide receivers. If Djax remains out this week, it's something we're going to have to look at. Zay Jones, 2 big games in his last 3. And at 4,200... going up against the Jets, I think we can use him in terms of the first look and maybe find something better as we move on throughout the week. We're going to still need more value. Kenny Stills against New England. Interesting where the shadow is going to come from because they do have a shutdown corner. Curtis Samuel, 11 targets last week and way more inclusion in the pass game and inside the red zone recently. This little scat back used as a wide receiver has been very, very good. And now that Olsen is probably going to miss the rest of the season, everybody else in the passing game should take a little bit of a step forward. I don't mind Curtis Samuel in the volume that he's seen recently. Conley or Callaway, somebody to consider. Conley, definitely somebody to consider if Sammy Watkins is out. We have 4,100 remaining. Kenny Stills seeing okay volume, but not great. Callaway against Carolina, seeing solid volume. Hands are still an issue, but big play possibilities here. I'm fine with that. And we can plug whatever we want to. Now, if you're going to do this the way that I normally do it, yes, we usually pay down to $5,500 to $6,000 for a quarterback. We usually pay down from $3,000 to $4,200 for a tight end. If you want to go that route for your first look, I totally understand. It gives you a lot more salary to play with to afford those those mid to high range wide receivers who are certainly in play this week. You can dial back one of these huge volume running backs to come down to Aaron Jones against a tasty matchup against Atlanta, or Phillip Lindsay, who's been on fire recently. But this is going to be my first look lineup for the week. I appreciate you guys being here once again. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, drop a like on this video, ring that notifications bell, subscribe button's right there. Check out one or more of my videos on this channel, and we'll see you next time right here. Bye, guys.